Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Andre, and this is the Localization Podcast, episode number 6. I'm thinking how to start this episode. I have no idea. Oh yeah, I know right now. The best thing for me to start is to greet everyone, regardless of where you're coming from. And so I started sharing the podcast on Reddit, on the localization subreddit. So hello. I'm sharing this also mainly on LinkedIn. I'm also sharing on Twitter and a little bit on Instagram. Is there any other platform that I'm using? Probably not for promotion. Wait, is there something else? Oh, maybe YouTube. I forgot about YouTube, even though that's like not the main platform for audio, but I still post it there, so maybe you're coming from there. Hello everyone and welcome. So this week, and FYI, it's Sunday 9:42 p.m. for me, and I just started recording, and I was going through the articles yesterday on Slater. There's not much content there. I think I'll just only mention like one article about SDL very briefly, and the rest of the content will be coming from social media only. So this is kind of like an interesting shift because like as I started doing the podcast, I know that I was trying to mainly focus on articles from Slater, but because they were usually about M&A and I don't know, IPO and stuff like that, not very practical things for our day-to-day lives. And maybe I just wasn't going through the social media very thoroughly, but like I get a lot of good stuff recently from social media, and that's especially Twitter and LinkedIn. And this episode will be recorded in a slightly different format. I mean, not format. I mean, like my talking will be still the same. It's just that my preparation has changed a little bit. Because I feel like I'm kind of under pressure, because it's already Sunday. So ideally, I want to be rendering the video today, overnight, so that tomorrow I can prepare the copy and I can be ready for Tuesday release. So, because there's like a lot of articles that I just discovered recently on Twitter, I haven't made any notes. So I think I will be reading the articles during the recording, and maybe I'll just put in some labels so that I know which parts I need to delete, so that you don't have to suffer through a lot of pauses that I make anyway. But that's just my way of speaking and trying to find the right words. Actually, I'm listening like a lot of Tim Ferriss' podcast recently, and he does pause here and there as well. And he kind of does the same thing that I did. That sometimes, like you pause to find the right, bridge or connecting sentence, or just find the right word, and then once you find it, you just fully unleash, and then you just speak like very quickly. I don't even know why I mentioned it. Another thing that I should have mentioned right at the very beginning, and I think it's the important thing for people who are listening to the podcast for the first time, so I need to remember this for the next episode. And actually, let me just take a note of that, because if I just say this and I continue recording for 1 hour, I will forget about this. Okay, so I took the note that for the next episode I need to start with the following disclaimer, and that is For those of you who are listening for the first time, one of the reasons why I started doing a podcast is so that I can so that I can practice speaking on my own without any super preparation or like without script, and just try to organize my thoughts and explain them in the best way possible. So that's why that's why I still see value of doing this, just on my own, just for my case. Like I'm trying to care less about like other people's opinions and judgments. Not like that I would like be against constructive feedback, not at all. But it's more about like the usual fear, like why people are not doing things, is that because they are afraid of what the feedback will be. In any case, it is still probably like on my wish list, to get some people on the podcast and have them either as full guests, where I would just interview them and find out like about what they do, how they do things, and what is their background, starting from like childhood, because like we need to get very deep, the landmark stuff. And the second possibility is that someone would comment on the news with me, but I would rather keep that just like a solo thing for now. And then I actually forgot about it will be the third thing, but I should have skipped the second one. So the third thing would be drinking. And I think I mentioned this in the very first episode that okay, now I'm just thinking that this intro is like too long, but whatever. So in the very first episode, I think that like one of the reasons why I started a podcast and like the direction that I wanted to do is that like eventually I want to have like a drinking podcast, or maybe like the drinking should be even video, to make it more attractive to people. And the premise is very simple, like when people drink, they are more open, they're more honest, they have less fear, they have less filters. And probably it will be much funnier than what I'm doing right now. Okay, so I'm turning into 8 minutes now, and I still haven't started with the main part, so let me get right into it. So the first article, and actually it's the first and the last one that I'm going to pick from Slater, is about the loved and hate SDL that rules our lives every day. So SDL has recently announced the results for the first half of 2019, and their revenues are up by 28%. So that's pretty good. And this is a result of a 3-year corporate transformation. And I don't have the details about it. What I learned from the article, just briefly, is that SDL has 3 divisions: language services, language technologies, and content technologies. They're pretty diversified when it comes to markets. So 41% is US, 39% EU, and 15% APAC. And the biggest takeaway that I have here is, surprisingly, and I was totally not aware of this, is that they have 1,400 in-house linguists. And they say, I think the CEO said that because of that, they have higher gross margins. So the idea of full in-house language teams is kind of like unusual, at least in my experience, because typically LSPs rely on freelancers or like smaller vendor companies. And the only company that I know that was like kind of like prioritizing like having internal language teams was Alpha. So that was the company that I worked for, I think it was 3 years, before I had my short episode with Lionbridge, and before I started working for Global Me, where I'm right now. So yeah, so this is kind of interesting how they can still keep the people on payroll and have higher margins because of that. And I was very surprised by that. Okay, and that ends the article. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so now we're going to look at social media. And originally I thought that I will have few articles from LinkedIn, but as I was checking the articles that I highlighted from LinkedIn, I think that the one that I selected, I thought it was like about like how to measure localization ROI, but in the end it turned out it's just about measuring marketing ROI in general, which is not specific to localization. So I won't be going into it, even though I think that the principles of marketing ROI still apply to localization because it's still marketing. The second thing that I have open here, and I think this may be coming from either Twitter or still LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. And this is some nice chart from Nimdzi. So I had no idea who Nimdzi is, like what kind of company they are. So they also do research within our industry. So I guess this is the second company that I know about besides Common Sense Advisory, which was like the main and the only research company that I knew from a long time ago, because they used to partner up with Moravia a lot, and at one of the conferences that we had, like annual Moravia, for all the employees, I think one of the guy from CSA was giving a speech at this event. Well, anyway, so this very nice chart is about industry verticals and the leaders in each vertical. And this is basically like a breakdown of which industry is represented by how much in okay, I know. I'm speaking very poorly today. So anyway, so here's the breakdown. So the biggest chunk is actually taken by the public sector, which is something, again, that I have absolutely no experience with. And 18% of language services are for the public sector. And some of the leaders in this vertical are the big word. I think I heard that. Maybe I was like even applying for a job with them, that they do a lot of government translations. Then we have Amplexor, SDL, Semantics, Sprachservice. That's probably some German. And for some reason I see a Canadian flag here. So I'm not sure what that actually means. Like, does the Canadian government translate its own stuff? I have no idea. So that's 18%, and that is actually like leading the chart. On the second place with 14% of language services is media localization. So this is OTT, Hollywood, TV, and corporate videos. And there are a lot of companies here that I have never seen before. VSI, Ayuno, Zoo, Lilo, Rev, Dubbing Brothers. So, yeah, it is true that I have not a lot of experience. I mean, like, we do localize media, but it's within marketing. So nothing for OTT, definitely not something like Hollywood. And this actually brings me to a post that was on Reddit. And I think let me actually quickly check, because I think it was posted this week, or at least I provided my reply the last week, and this guy was asking about working in the industry. So yeah, I replied 4 days ago, so I'm going to definitely speak about that. But let's finish first what we started. So that was media localization at the second place. So third place with 13% is life sciences. So this is pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and CRO. I have no idea what that stands for. And the leaders here are Morning Slide Translations, WeLocalize, SDL, TransPerfect. I knew about TransPerfect because I think most of their, or maybe like 50% of their revenues are coming from life sciences. And we have Accolade, Amplexor, RWS Moravia, and there's even Lambridge. So that's 13%. Next one is with 9%, we have a tie between healthcare interpreting. So that's for hospitals, insurance, and telemedicine. And then we have IT. So let's first go through healthcare leaders, because this is, again, something that I have zero experience with, especially since this is interpretation. And it's very difficult for me to read the logo. So the first one is like language line something. They have white text on a blue background, kind of like a tilted rectangle. Then there's Marty, Siracom, Language Link, Cultural Link, Stratus, In Demand, Propio, and Globo. And the second industry tie with this is IT. So this is definitely kind of like my forte, and the industry where I have most of the experience. So these are software giants, hardware, unicorn startups, and e-learning. And the latest here are RWS Moravia, SDL, Pactera, WeLocalize. Then this company, which has like a very weird logo, I cannot... Oh, is it Logos? Probably. Their logo is like very, very weird. It's not easy to decode it. Then there's Star, I think Star, is it Star Transit? Then we have TransPerfect, and then we have Appen. So that is the company that I mentioned recently. I think they're Australia based, and they're big on data collection, if I'm not mistaken. So that was 9% of the whole language services. Then we have, with 7%, we have again two industries. One of them is financial and legal. So this is translations for banks, fintech, auditors, legal companies, and attorneys. And the leaders here are WeLocalize, Morningside, Accolade, Lambridge, SDL, TransPerfect, Pactera. And the second 7% is for marketing. So these are advertising advertising firms and marketing departments. And the leaders here are DataWords, never heard of that, Accolade, Language Wire, is the Language Wire? I can barely read it. Star Transit, Alpha, so finally Alpha, and that's it. That's 7%. At 6% we have translation of IP. That's very interesting, because I thought that IP would fall under legal translations, but I guess it doesn't. And we have Morningside Translations, Honiaku or Moniaku Center, Accolade, Multilink, and WeLocalize, and also RWS. The second 6% is technical, so this is energy, telecom, aviation, construction, and engineering. And the leaders here are Seprotech, Kern, Acolyte. Okay, now that I'm actually doing this, I'm thinking like this part, like me trying to basically rephrase the whole chart is probably not a very exciting content. So if you drop by now, I understand it. So I'm going to speed it up. So that's 6%, and we're almost there. So then we have at 4%, it's e-commerce and travel. And at 3%, it's automotive. Okay, so that's this chart. So I'm going to add a note, and I'm going to go back to Reddit because I didn't originally select Reddit because I thought there was nothing new, because the comment that I provided was a few days ago, but I still think that it's worth mentioning it. First of all, because the question was related to localization. Second, because I think it's my reply. So by me sharing my answer, maybe you get to learn something more about me. And the third thing is that this is like an important topic because I'm pretty sure that most of the people on this planet actually don't have a job that they really are passionate about. And so they're just kind of like working, to pay the bills and get by. Or maybe they have like a lot of experience for some reason, for example, like me, and they are afraid to make a switch, or they think that if they make a switch, they would their lifestyle would be affected or something like that. So here's the question that was submitted by a user on the localization subreddit. What advice would you give someone who wants to work in film or entertainment localization? I see that entertainment localization translation don't always receive recognition in the general localization industry. Does anyone here have experience working with projects involving localizing subtitles, audio, or content? How did you get started? Do you still enjoy it? What qualities do you look for in someone who works in this field? So, I'm gonna get some water. So my reply came a little bit later, and in the meantime, there were two people who were like asking him for more specifics, like what he's looking for. And he replied that he's looking into something like project management or coordinating. And then another user replied to that he has seen some jobs mainly in Asia, and it's probably good to get experience in any sort of project management and then look for companies that handle topics that are interested to you, which I definitely agree with, but more on that in my reply. And to this reply from the user, the OP who asked the question gave this information. That's exactly what I hope to do. I'm and this is important. I'm currently working towards a MA. I'm not sure what the fuck that means. Like, is it like masters? Probably masters in tech localization. I have no idea what tech localization means. So I'm currently working towards MA in tech localization, but it wasn't until recently that I realized I want to work in the film industry. I feel like I'm going in the wrong direction here. So first of all, I had no idea that you could study tech localization specifically. Like I have no idea like what it even means. Like what would you study like for 3 or 4? I don't even know like how long it takes to study localization, or maybe like even 2 years. Like what would you study for 2 years to learn tech localization? Like, what is there to learn? Maybe it's easy for me to ask this question since I have like several years of experience. But I mean, like, wouldn't you just learn like localization in general? Like, does it even matter, like, if it's tech or whatever? And so based on this comment that the user provided, this is my reply. So here it goes. The closest I've come to this industry is an interview with Netflix, but I didn't get the job. They're hiring for localization positions, check them out, although I'm not sure if they have any entry-level positions. HBO and Amazon are in the same boat, try. Not sure who does localization for theater movies. I would assume local distributors, ? Better poke Netflix and company, since they keep their localization in-house for all the content that gets distributed globally on their platforms. If you really, really want to get into companies like Netflix, look for intern jobs or just keep bugging people on social with something valuable for them, or just engage in their conversations and offer to work for free and experience. The question is, do you want to work for film or entertainment industry simply because you like movies or creative work? Or do you really see project management as something fulfilling and you'd like to do it within an industry you have passion for? My theory is that project management is quite universal once you get to a certain level. It doesn't matter what kind of projects you're managing, despite what many HR people say in their job posts. You deal with clients and their requirements, deadlines, and budget. You work with a team of experts who will have a lot more exposure to the actual content, like movie subtitles, voiceover, promotional material, than you. It may be nice to manage the localization of Stranger Things Season 4, but most of your time you'll be writing emails. Don't fall into the trap of gaming testers. People who think they'll be playing games for fun and getting paid for it. After a short time, it becomes a routine and you don't get to enjoy the game, it's just work. My point is, you need to like project management, the industry is secondary. If you see localization as an entry opportunity into the industry, go for it. But don't limit your options just to localization simply because you're going to have some stupid paper, aka degree. If the industry appeals to you, there's a lot more that you can do to get in, especially if you have passion for something else than localization project management. So, the reply, and this is, I'm going to brag here because I think I gave him pretty good answer. Because like when he said that he's currently working on like a degree in tech localization, whatever that means, and then at some point he realized that he wants to work for film industry. So the first thing that came to my mind was like, okay, so you found passion for movie for whatever reason, but because you already are studying something which is not like a super great fit with your newly discovered passion, you somehow wanna leverage the time and the effort that you put into the studies, or maybe the degree that you are going to get, and try to like use that as your leverage to get into the industry. But my point was like, you shouldn't limit it just to that, because like it's just a stupid paper. It's a degree. Like, I have no degree in localization. I was just hired because Moravia needed like people during the peak period, and I just stuck to the industry for more than 10 years now. And the point is also that, I think maybe I was mentioning this already earlier in the podcast, that how to say this the right way. That because we already have like a certain past experience, it doesn't mean that what we want to do in the future like needs to be leveraged or like connected directly to that experience. And this guy, since he's studying, I think he's still young. So like he has like a lot more options how to get into the industry. And so his original reply was like, this is exactly what I needed to read, thank you. So I was very happy about it. But now that I'm reading this, he actually did edit his reply, and he added this thing. Reading your reply again does make me admit to myself that film and creative work are things I'm more passionate about than general project management. Film was my first exposure to foreign language and sparked my interest in language services, which is how I got into localization. Most of my experience in the localization and translation field, but it would be amazing if I could learn a new skill for entertainment. So, okay. I think there's like some words missing or something in his reply. But yeah, so this was the story of the Reddit. Okay, moving on to Twitter, where I have a bunch of articles that were interesting and that I'm just reading now right before I start talking about them. First one is from Motion Point, and I think I mentioned and noticed Motion Point last week. They have like some new solution for which I didn't like their messaging. Like their whole unique value proposition is based on them expecting me to understand what their key something means. It's like wait, I got mixed up. So they have like an alternative solution to connectors and to API. Let me just find this. So that, yeah, it's called Turnkey Solution. So right now I'm looking at their Twitter, and their cover image is Motion Point. That's their logo. And then the unique value proposition is the only turnkey solution for multilingual websites. What the fuck does turnkey mean? And I even tried to answer this question, I think, last time, and I still don't get it. I don't know why they put it there. It's so confusing. Maybe I should just tag someone. But I probably won't do it because I don't care. And so this article is about evaluating new international markets for your business. This is a very interesting and even relevant topic for me. And I think, oh yeah, now I remember. I think it was maybe the first or the second episode of the podcast where I responded to some question. I'm not sure where exactly on which platform it was, but I was talking about, there was a question about like how do you decide which market to go to, and my whole answer is pretty much like you need to test things and take it slowly. So let's see what the Motion Point people suggest. And I like this article. So they're saying that there are two important criteria. One is the market attractiveness, and the other one is its accessibility. So what does the market attractiveness means? It means the likelihood of long-term success in that market and how valuable it can be to your business goals. And the questions that you need to consider are, is this a profitable market for me? Can I prosper there? Are customers willing to pay for my goods or services? What is the size of the market? How much of the addressable market can we expect to serve? Can we build the right relationships with this customer base? Can we expect repeat business in this market? So this is all about the value on the investment. And then the second criteria is the market accessibility. Why do I say it that way? Accessibility. Okay, that's a bad word for me. So what this means is how logistically complex and potentially expensive a market will be to serve. To determine a market's accessibility, ask questions such as, is it feasible for me to expand here? Do regulations prevent me from going there? Do I have the logistical infrastructure to go there? Other key questions to ask. Are there significant legal obstacles? Is the language barrier easy to manage? Can we afford to work in this market? What will my infrastructure requirements look like? So this is very much about the way this sounds to me, like the accessibility thing is like figuring out like the rules of the game. So attractiveness of market is about ROI. Accessibility is about how to get there, how to penetrate a market, and if it's feasible. And the next section of this article is beyond attractiveness and accessibility, 4 key questions. So let's see what else they suggest. What is the profile of your ideal customer? Where are your competitors doing business? What are the current technology trends and influences? How do we plan for the future? Okay, so this is quite generic. And here's the final paragraph, which is test, and localize. So this is kind of in line with what I was saying before. And I'm just going to quote the article. It says, after determining market's attractiveness and accessibility, the next step is to test the waters. Consider the low-cost, low-risk investment of localizing your website and digital channels such as email and social media to provide content in the preferred local language. Establish distribution partnerships with local partners or wholesalers or even popular virtual marketplaces to test product sales. The best digital translation solutions can help you localize your website and content for omnichannel. I have no idea what it means. They also provide supporting technologies like APIs to integrate content into third-party systems and marketplaces and localize omnichannel assets. So this is where they start to pitch the potential customers or so I'm thinking right now what to add to this. So test and localize. So is the market attractive? What is the competition? Can we get there? Like, what will we need to do? Do we need an office and stuff like that? But the best thing is definitely to test. Maybe you don't even need to start selling there first. Maybe like you can start by like, I don't know, doing some I don't know, like maybe you can just quickly like set up like some small microsite, maybe drive some test traffic to it and see like what would be the response. Like would people, for example, like sign up for like, I don't know, like is it called pre-sales or something like that? Like, hey, we are coming to your market, you can buy the product or whatever at a lower price now, just leave your email and something like that, you know. So you don't need to go there physically and open an office and deal with all the like bullshit. You can just first test it like digitally, like if there's like a demand for the product or the service that you want to move into that country. So that was that. And what do we have next? The next thing, if this actually refreshes, there it is. And this is an article from our... Oh. I thought, okay. So as I was going through Twitter, I noticed a post from Level Up Translation, which is a company that I have mentioned several times on this podcast because I like their content that they're creating. I just didn't like their thumbnails that they're using because they're not optimized for certain platforms because some of the text is truncated. And I discovered, and as I was going through Twitter and the localization hashtag, I noticed that some of the articles that they recently posted are old ones. So they're basically doing new posts for old articles. And then I found this one which caught my attention, which was called Keys to Cracking the Russian Video Games Market. And I haven't seen it before, or maybe I forgot about it, so I thought like, hey, it's a new article. But now that I'm actually going through it, I can see that it was published in December 2016, so it is quite old. So let me just quickly skim through this article so you don't have to wait for me to read it. Okay, I quickly went through the article, and the important things that I see here, despite that it's an old article, is that Russia generates 1.4 billion in the gaming market, with tons of growth still to enjoy. Russia is currently the 11th biggest gaming market in the world, and it's the second most widely used language on Steam. So no reason why localizing into Russian is very key for the game industry. When it comes to the game formats, 27% is MMO games, 23% is casual web games, and 20% is mobile phone games. So there's a lot of casual and social web games played in Russia. When it comes to platforms, Android is by far the most popular platform. But however, Apple iOS still generates more revenue from paid downloads and in-app purchases, which is a trend that is worldwide. And here are the localization best practices for the Russian market. So I'm just going to read through all the bullet points. Adapt your UI. Allow more space for text and design dynamic buttons and text boxes that adapt to their content. Okay. Test your fonts. Make sure the fonts used in your game are compatible with Cyrillic. Is it Cyrillic or Cyrillic characters? Allow gamers to access the English version of your game. Give them the choice. Provide Russian subtitles for the English version of your game with the option to turn them on or off. Consider providing Russian translated voiceovers and allow gamers to turn them on or off. Ensure subtitles and voiceovers are accurate to the English text and dialogue. Get your spelling and grammar spot on with translations. Make sure your use of Russian scripts and spacing are accurate. And I am now 50 minutes into the recording, and once again I'm starting to feel like my throat is getting super itchy, even though I'm not feeling sick at all. It's just all this talking. Okay, so I'm going to look for the next article. And I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. So the next article that I noticed on Twitter was from Amara. And I know Amara because I was recently, not very recently, but some time ago, I was looking for like a subtitling app that I could use for the video content that I was doing for YouTube, which I haven't done much recently. I'm just doing the Localization Podcast now. And so I stumbled upon Amara, which was pretty decent, but I just stuck to YouTube because YouTube provides automated captions. And because I just needed like 1 or 2 minute subtitles for like 1 or 2 minutes of video, I decided to stick to YouTube because I just have to like make like few changes here and there to correct the automatically generated subtitles. So the article from Amara is about video localization. Get more from your audio-visual content. And this article is super fucking long. And it's very broad. It starts by talking about like how video is important, that 82% of global internet traffic will be from video, and how much video is uploaded to YouTube. So they say that 500 hours of new videos uploaded to YouTube every minute. So yeah, 87% of all businesses use video. Okay, thank you for that. Then they explain the basics of localization, saying that 72% of consumers worldwide spend most or all of their time on websites in their own language. And today's buyers are less willing to purchase products and services that aren't available in their own language. Okay, so this is standard. And at first, like when I was reading this, I was like, okay, like we know this. But I guess like their target audience for this article is someone who just doesn't know much about localization, so they need to understand why somebody would need videos and why somebody would need to localize them. And finally, we're getting into something more practical. And here they describe like a process for localizing subtitles. So step 1, transcription. Convert the audio to text if there was no original script. Step 2, timestamp the script transcript to create same language captions. QA of the newly created captions. Step 4, translation and localization. Step 5, modify timestamps to match new corresponding subtitles depending on language. And step 6, new languages subtitles QA review. Minimum 1 round of review. Okay, so that's pretty basic. Is there anything I can add about this? Probably no. And here we have some tips for video localization. So this is still from Amara's blog. Tip number 1, include a research phase. Every country has its own cultural norms and different ways of doing business, especially as we become more and more interdependent in global commerce. Research doesn't have to be difficult though, especially if you take the time to find reliable sources of information and localization experts to help you adapt your message to different cultures. It's always good to have multiple sources to verify information. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, tip number 2, don't rely on automation for accuracy. So this basically means no NMT, no machine-generated subtitles. Even though they're cheapest, if you want your brand to be relatable and relevant in a new market within a different geographic locations, human translators are the way to go. Yeah. Tip number 3, use samples when working with a new localization service. Now, what does this mean? Okay, so they're suggesting that you basically test them. So you chop the video into small 1 to 2 minute videos. No, into small 1 to 2 minute video subtitling orders, so that you can verify the so that you can evaluate the vendor quality before you make the final decision. And tip number 4, business planning is key. And this is basically about the ROI. So yeah, the article wasn't super helpful. Another thing that I noticed, and this is from a very new company, I haven't seen them yet, they are called Terra Translations. And let me look at their website, their homepage. And what do they say? Your English and Spanish language solution. So that's their UVP. Not very convincing, not very unique at all. So I guess they just specialize in the Spanish market. And I'm not sure if the images are like stock photo images or if they're like, that's how the team looks like. But under the UVP, which is right on top of the hero image, which in this case is video, and I'm actually inclined to think that their video playing in the background is actually their team, which would be nice because it makes things personal. So right under that, they have like these 3 main categories. Well, it's not like a category, but it's like the benefits for the customers, I would say. So the first thing is that they focus on project management. Ooh. Project management, then it's our team, and then it's quality, where they have like a lot of ISOs. And as you know, since I this SPICE, is it the SPICE? All the papers, all the standards, and all the stupid degrees. So like when you have like ISO and you say like, hey, like that's like our biggest value, that you have some ISO, I'm always like, okay, you probably suck because you just stick to some stupid certifications and you cannot think outside of the box. But anyway, their article is an insider's guide to the role of an account manager. And when I saw this, I was surprised because this is what they actually say. So this should be about the account manager at Terra Translations. And the first paragraph is a day in the life of an account manager. Similar to a PM, no 2 days are alike in the world of an AM. The primary role of the AM is to be the dedicated point of contact for the client. Their responsibilities include confirming projects, delivering drafts, preparing quotes, negotiating rates and deadlines, on top of attending regular meetings, webinars, and events. AMs are a resource to the client, and building a proper report is of the utmost importance. So when I was first reading this, like confirming projects and preparing quotes, that's like a PM task. The rest kind of like, okay, maybe fits, but I'm not so convinced. And here's account manager's core skills. AMs with a strong set of soft skills tend to excel at their role. One of the strongest skills that AMs can have is the ability to critically think and problem solve. Hey, that's me. Oftentimes, AMs must address difficult issues with clients, such as negotiating the budget or pushing back unrealistic deadlines. Another valuable skill to have as an AM is collaboration. Okay, everybody needs to collaborate these days. Lastly, AMs should encompass empathy. The ability to understand and anticipate the needs of both the client and the team will proactively halt problems before they start. Okay, that makes sense. And they are decision makers. Okay, so in the end, this was not very interesting. I'm sorry to bore you. How many do I have left? There's one article from SDL, which is about global SEO, and it's an infographic. So let me look at that one next. So it's titled Beyond Global SEO Best Practices. You've got great content, but how do you gain an audience? So first impression, this is like a PDF. It's not like a full infographic, but it looks very nice. Like the design and the colors are clean, matching the SDL's new brand, I think. I really like the colors. So here's the first thing. Include translation in your strategy from the start. Implement a clearly visible language dropdown. So that's where you select the language for the website. Localize rather than translate keywords. Okay, this is important. Add unique keywords to your terminology database. Ensure your terminology database is applied. I'm confused here. Why do you talk about like terminology when like localizing keywords doesn't have much to do with the terminology? Or is it you should add it to the database? Okay, now I think I get it. But first, of course, it means you need to do the research on the keywords and use your sitemap to target priority translation. My what? There's just 2 bullets for this point for the sitemap, and it's add fresh localized content continuously. Translate your URLs using relevant terms. Okay, let's just leave it like that. Create high quality translatable content with global appeal and reach. Make sure your content is well organized. Fix broken links and set redirects. Integrate an XML sitemap for referencing and crawlability. Implement usage of hreflang to map to language-specific content and serve the best search results for your audience. Okay, that's something that I have never heard before. Build content around key elements. Title tag, H1, H2 headlines, image alt attributes, meta description tags. Okay, that's nice. SEO is a marathon, not a sprint. Developing and translating more locally relevant content creates a continuous and memorable user experience. Okay, I like this. It's pretty basic, but I like it. Okay, and I have 2 more. Hopefully I'll be able to survive. So the first one is from Text United, and I think I noticed Text United in the previous episode. They have this kind of like nice colorful logo, and they're in Vienna. And so their new article is, which was posted 5 days ago, is 5 ways to improve your localization strategy. So the first paragraph, the opening paragraph is, when you expand to foreign markets, you expect growth in website traffic, a new base of customers, and finally, an increase in sales. What if none of this is happening despite your efforts? Let's talk about a few ways that will help you improve your localization strategy and really nail your global conquest. So they have these 5 tips. Number 1, review your content. Remember that not all of the elements of your brand might be suitable for everyone and any region. If you translated everything without checking up on your content first, start over with a research on your target market. Okay, so that's about what are we actually localizing for a certain market. Number 2, hire local professionals. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. Number 3, don't just translate, localize. So, okay. The whole article is about improving localization strategy, so I would assume that nobody's just blindly translating from A to B. Tip number 4, review translations the proper way. What is a proper way for them? So, internal review can improve your strategy by adding tremendous amount of value to the translated content. In-country reviewer must make sure that the translation represents your company in the local market and properly reflects all specific aspects and nuances of your products and services. And okay, step number 5 is don't forget about SEO translation. Okay, so this is about translating, and they literally say translating instead of localizing. So not only what the human eye can read, but also what search engines like Google, Yahoo, Bing, and others see. Yeah, so like when I review all these tips, maybe the first one would like reviewing your content and which one you think should be actually localized. So it's kind of going back to like the ROI of what we should localize and whether it's going to bring us the value that we want. That's like the only part that I would probably say that fits the title of the article, and that is ways to improving the your localization strategy. Because the other tips, they're kind of like basics. So I really don't like this article at all. And the last one, this is again a new company called the Rubric, RUBRIC. And their Twitter bio is Global Localization and Translation Services Provider. Learn more at their blog. Ugh, I need water. And the article that I found on Twitter is called Controlling Entropy in UI Localization. And I think that actually I will stop it right here because that article was very technical, very engineering oriented, which actually I'm not like saying that engineering is not important. I don't know like how I would rephrase it and comment it, because there are like in that article there are like many examples of like from code. So with that being said, I think that's all I had for today. So I'm running slightly over 1 hour and it's almost 11 p.m. here, so I need to get started editing this whole thing. I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish this today. I have to. Fuck. So, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. And I hope that you will tune in to the next episode next week. And that will be the last one that I will be recording in Vancouver, because then in less than 2 weeks I'll be flying over to Philippines and I'll be doing my content then there. So I hope that the internet speed there in Philippines will be decent and I will still be able to upload stuff to YouTube. Okay. I don't want to prolong this any further because I want to eat some popcorn and start doing the post editing. So thank you for listening and have a great day or evening wherever you are. Bye.